On today's show, a temperature check on the LA Clippers offseason, getting the thoughts from our radio host, Adam Auslund. It's been a while since we've had a guest on. Going to talk about the latest rumors and just his feelings on the team going into this offseason. That's coming up on today's Locked On Clippers.
You are Locked On Clippers, your daily Los Angeles Clippers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, sir. You were locking in with the Clips. Thank you for making Locked On Clippers the first listen of your day, your team every day. I'm your host, Darian Vaziri, born and raised in LA, been a Clipper fan for 20 years, been covering the team for 5 on my own YouTube channel, Dime Dropper, and 3 years right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube and listen wherever you get your podcast. For this episode, we got our main man, the radio host of your LA Clippers, and host of Clippers Talk on YouTube. Adam, I'm trying to get more guests on this summer and be a little better about that in the coming weeks. You're the first of hopefully many. Welcome back to the show. First time in the off season.
Good to be on with you, Darian. As always, let's do it.
So in this episode, I'm just going to be taking, a temperature check, how Adam's feeling after this playoff run, his thoughts on the series. You can revisit that a little bit. And then how far we are from a title, and then we're going to see where that takes us from there, because I think we'll have a lot to say on that. So, Adam, the last time we talked, do you remember exactly what time it was? Did we talk right before this series, or were we talking in the middle of this series? I think it was before, right?
I think before. I'm not even sure. It's all been a blur right now.
Yeah, a little bit. But by the way, this episode is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. But, okay, so how did you feel about the overall ending to the series, though? 7 games. We had a 2-1 lead. Heartbreaking game 4. But just give me your thoughts.
I felt like a missed opportunity to me. And I go back to game 1. And I think game 1s are very important. It's a tone setter. And when you're up by 15, I think you have to find a way to win that game. It goes into overtime. And the Clippers their starters, played less minutes in a game that went to overtime in a playoff setting than they did against Golden State in a game that was technically a regular season game to stay out of the play-in at the very end of the season. And I just felt like they didn't have enough of a sense of urgency in that moment to really go for it and get that game. And I don't know. It's always hard to say because there's a butterfly effect going on. Do they win game 2 if they had won game 1?
Right.
I don't know. But I just wanted to see them match the sense of urgency that was out there from the Denver Nuggets, who have that championship DNA, who have the intangibles where if you're in a close game with them, they're likely going to find a way to beat you. They can still call back to 2023 moments that they had on their way to winning a ring. And I think you need to be cognizant of that. And unfortunately, the Clippers, it was a series to me where they had to win in 6. And I said Clippers in 6 before the series started. And unfortunately, they were down 3-2 heading into that home game in game 6, and they had to win it just to extend the series instead of closing it out. So I didn't feel great about game 7. However, they were up by 5 after the first quarter, but then just completely fell apart in a way like we really hadn't seen from this particular group this season, where they really let go of the rope, where 2 minutes into that third quarter, it felt like it was over. They were down 11 at the half. They were down by just 8 after Kawhi hit a three-pointer early in the third quarter. And then Denver went on a 17-0 run in the game, and the season was over just like that. It was so abrupt. And it didn't feel like Clippers basketball. It didn't feel like that resilient bunch. It didn't feel representative of how this team played throughout a lot of this season. And so it was really disappointing. And then it makes it really hard to look back on this year because as much fun as we had getting to 50 wins, being a team that exceeded expectations and really spit in the face of some of the analyst predictions going on before the season started, as successful of a regular season as it was, it felt like a really disappointing and devastating ending to it. So it's kind of hard to merge those two things when you think about the 2024-2025 LA Clippers.
Yeah, I agree with almost everything you said. Basically everything you said. I would follow up and ask you, because I do agree that it seemed like we just kind of gave up and it was over after the third quarter or ran out of gas, whatever you want to call it. What do you put that down to? Well, I mean, I'd say first question, what do you put that down to that game 7 felt like so uncharacteristic of this Clippers squad? Even though our few games this season, I mentioned this a bunch on the show, some of the only games this season that it felt like the Clippers didn't even come out and try were against the Nuggets in Denver. One of them was during the fires, and I thought that game should have never been played. But the other one was just one of those rare nights where it looked like we didn't have much. I think it was 120-98 Denver. And so what do you put that down to? And then my second question would be, what was the route that we should have been able? Do you put it down to game 1 more than game 4? Because you did say the butterfly effect, and it is very rare that a team, especially a team like Denver, would lose the first 2 games at home. All out 2021 Clips. So I would ask you, where was the avenue that we missed to finish this series in 6? And if it was game 1, it was game 1. But yeah, go ahead.
It's game 1 or game 4. I touched upon game 1. I'll talk a little bit about game 4. That was a game where they came out uncharacteristically flat. The Clippers have actually been better in first quarters this season than they had been in past years, where it always seemed to be a bugaboo from this team, and we try to figure out what's going on. Afternoon starts, older squad. Why does it take them so much time to kick in and to engage in battle sometimes in these games? Well, that hadn't happened a lot this season, and then it did when they had a chance to put their foot down on this series and go up 3-1 after a very impressive win in game 3 in dominating fashion. And that to me, and I saw it right away, I think there was a turnover by Kawhi Leonard. It just seemed like they were a little bit lackadaisical out there. And they didn't start playing until they got down by 20. And they were, I think it was 22 at one point in that fourth quarter of the ball game. And then it went back to where the comeback Clips. We feel comfortable in this position. And it looked like they were going to have a tremendous all-time playoff comeback. Like, I don't think, given time and how much they were down, there would have ever been a comeback as massive as that with only about 9 minutes left. I think they were down 22. Bogey has that putback offensive rebound. It felt like it was incredible, the atmosphere in there with the way Intuit was rocking. It felt like game 6 against the Utah Jazz in 2021 back at Crypto all of a sudden.
Louder.
It was that lit. Yeah, because it gets louder in there. Yeah. But again, where is the sense of urgency at the end of that game to optimize your lineups to have the best guys in the best position to box out and make a play? I understand it's not Coach Lou's fault that Norman Powell had that lapse and let Aaron Gordon get by him, if you want to say it was him or Harden, whatever. But is that the best option to be out there at that point of the game? Why not have Batum? Why not have Ben Simmons? Anybody out there? It just, I think it actually could have ended up being much worse. Think about it this way. If Jokic didn't settle for that shot, the perfect air ball that gets put back in by Aaron Gordon, what if they actually ran their offense and they picked on Bogey or Norm or James Harden, who are all out there on the floor? It would have emphasized the Clippers personnel issue even more. Why were those guys out there? So to me, I just thought that was a game plan mistake. I don't think Coach Lou had a great series. I'm a big Coach Lou guy. I like the way you defend him, knowing what it's like to be a coach, and every fan base seems to want their coach fired. Even Heat fans, even Golden State Warriors fans, they're always looking to blame the head coach. In this series, though, I just felt like, in particular, Coach Lou didn't have a great series. And the Clippers, I don't know if they underestimated Denver, but it felt like that at times.
Okay, so I completely agree with the game 4 take. I mean, that Denver, after getting destroyed like that in game 3, is going to come out with a sense of desperation. I mean, they came back down 3-1 against us before, but a team is going to just go down 3-1 easily. Especially a team like that, they're going to punch back. And you're right. We just we waited to get hit in the mouth before we responded. And that's always putting yourself in a tough position. And then, of course, fine margins at the end. So let me ask you this. do you think, and then what about the game 7 part? Do you think we just ran out of gas, or do you think that was like, I don't know.
It looked like they rolled over a little bit to me in that third quarter, where they felt like they didn't have it in a game where, mind you, Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic weren't doing much. It was all the role players. It was Christian Brown. It was Aaron Gordon. It was Russell Westbrook, of course, out there. It was the other guys doing most of the work for the Denver team. I don't know. That looked like I wish I could rationalize it as they just ran out of gas, but they broke their will. I felt like Denver did in that second half.
Wow. Big words. And coming up, we're going to elaborate a little bit more on that and also delve a little bit deeper into this Ty Lue conversation, his series, and the talk about is he the right guy for the Clippers going forward? Is time up for him? We're going to talk about that coming up. I got to tell you a little something about FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are in full swing. The NBA finals are in full swing. And what a game 1 we just had. But now would be a great time. If you still thought the Thunder were going to win this series, not a bad time to place your bets on the Thunder. I'm looking at the lines, and it's still Thunder minus 320. So go on FanDuel. So go ahead. It's not bad. If you're confident the Thunder are going to win this series, go ahead. And, of course, SGA winning finals MVP. Or if you want to put the money on Halliburton, now's not a bad time after that performance and that shot. So which players are going to show up in the biggest moments, and how could tracking their trends help you build your next bet? Well, FanDuel.com has everything you need. If you've got a read on who's heating up, back it up with a same-game parlay. New to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, here with our radio host, Adam Auslund, to talk a little bit more about this Denver series. And, of course, Ty Lue. Game 7, you said they broke their will a little bit. Do you put that down to the coach that we had a lack of will, all the players, the star players? I mean, because that's kind of inexcusable to say that in a game 7, is it not? For a team that we thought was, we're led by 2 Hall of Famers with a lot on their resume, and our role players didn't make shots. I'm talking individuals now at this point. Like did Derek Jones not bring it? Did Chris Dunn? Or is it just everyone? I want to hear your thoughts on that before we get into Ty Lue.
Charles Barkley has said something before that I actually felt like it was profound. This was like the one time he has said something very deep and impactful with his analysis to me. I give him a hard time. I love him. Obviously, he is the funniest, most entertaining analyst ever. But he said there comes a point in the 7-game series where both teams know who the better team is. And I think that may have been what happened in that second half with the Clippers. Being down 11 at the half, Kawhi shaves it down to 8 after that three-pointer, and then the floodgates open, and they just didn't have the requisite fight to get back into it. I could be wrong. Maybe they did run out of gas. It was James Harden, who had just played, I think, 46 or 47 minutes in Game 6 and had a spectacular game. So he could have definitely been out of gas. Kawhi looked decent in that Game 7, but he wasn't getting a lot of help out there. Ivica Zubac didn't look to be at his best. Just a lot of things started going against them, and they just kind of succumbed to the onslaught that the Denver Nuggets put on them in the elevation with a great home court advantage, one of the best in sports.
Yeah, very unfortunate for those fans that, obviously once in a lifetime experience to get flown out there by Ballmer, the people of the swell. But to see that, that's tough, especially around the Denver fans. But let's talk a little bit more about Ty Lue. I agree with the points that you made about him. He didn't have the best series. I don't know how much I subscribe to the notion that he got thoroughly out-coached by Adelman, which is what a lot of people are saying. We're Clipper fans. We're not looking at it from Denver's perspective of adjustments and this and that. We're not even thinking about that. We're only looking at our side. They had the best player in the world. You know what I'm saying? Or, now if people are going to debate Shane out, top 2, whatever you want to say. Kawhi, as you mentioned, was good. Now, let me ask you, we're going to talk about Kawhi later. We'll save that for the end. But what about Ty Lue? Do you think he's the guy going forward? Does the fire Ty Lue crowd have more, gas in their argument now? Because it wasn't a great showing. And, I kept defending him, and I kept saying he hasn't had a chance to coach a healthy roster. And it's not like it's easy. Like, what team has crazy postseason success with their best player, consensus best player, playing less than half the season? That just doesn't happen. So it's not like he had the easiest job in the world, but is it time to go a different direction?
I don't think this is a situation where guys are tuning him out or his message has gotten stale or anything like that. You mentioned David Adelman there and people saying he outcoached Ty Lue. And I'm guessing those are just the same people that are looking for confirmation bias because they already don't like Coach Lue. But the
Right.
truth is, he had less moves to go to. If anything, maybe the Clippers beat themselves, some paralysis by analysis going on. But David Adelman, because they didn't have the deepest team, because they were running like 5.5, 6 guys out there, it kind of made things a little bit more simpler than it was for the Clippers. Now, one thing that I was asking for, certainly after game 5, but even heading into the series, I said at some point, Coach Lue is going to go to this. And I did a show on it like a month before the playoffs started. I felt like he had a secret weapon and a lineup he'd go to when things got dire, and that would be Nico Batum in the starting lineup. And he went to it the second half of game 6. He finally started him. And obviously it worked, but was it a game too late, a game or two too late? I don't know. Does that go back to the lack of urgency and just feeling like, to me, the best way I can explain it is from the outside, just looking in, is maybe they thought they had more of a margin for error than they actually did heading into that series because Denver was dealing with a lot. Coach fired, GM fired. What direction are we going in? There was just a lot of outside noise involving the Denver Nuggets where nobody would have been surprised if they imploded in the playoffs. Instead, they rallied around all that adversity going on. And I'm not putting, everything on Coach Lue in this series. When you talk about the blame pie, it
Mhm.
is it is sliced up into all these different sections, and you put a percentage on it. Is Coach Lue the majority of the pie? I don't know. I do think he deserves some criticism, to be fair, for some of those moves that I already mentioned. I also think it's a players' league, and your guys have to show up. And he cycled through enough of them with the role players really not meeting the moment. Like Bogey and Norman Powell just weren't good enough. And
Yeah.
Bogey's a role player. Norman Powell's not a role player. Norman Powell should have been an all-star this season. Easily could have been. Unfortunately, he got hurt. Maybe that's what it was, but his rhythm never seemed to be there.
Never.
But very up and down in that playoff series. They needed much more from Norman Powell. So if the same guys that have gotten you to this point of winning 50 games aren't performing at that same level, like that puts a lot on you to now have to figure out where else to go. And the first guy for Norm is Bogey. And Bogey didn't hit a shot till what, game 3? The end of game 3 in the series when they kept him in garbage time just so he could get a shot to go.
Yeah.
Like a lot of guys weren't at their best.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're not team get rid of Ty. You want to keep him around. I'm not saying I am. I don't know the many better options there are out there, but something that can be said is that the Nuggets didn't play too differently than what we'd seen in previous years, stylistically. At least I didn't notice anything. And when they fired Michael Malone, it clearly seemed like it was more of like an internal, as you said, stop being able to reach players, maybe a style war on them, because Murray was out a lot of those games they were losing. I never subscribed, and they were like still like the 4th seed or something. So like it wasn't like they were completely falling off a cliff. But yeah, they might have needed to do that. But basketball wise, they still were running a lot of the same stuff we'd seen in years past. How much do you think Ty Lue is to blame for people saying that we run a very stagnant, slow offense, whereas they run more of a motion scheme? I always talk about that it's the players that dictate that, but do you think we are too stagnant of an offense around Ty Lue as well? And do you think we should, as I'm saying, I know I'm asking a lot of questions, but and do you think he's still the guy going forward? I know you probably think he's gonna be, but do you think he should be?
Yeah, they're two different questions there, obviously. He's going to be. He just got a contract extension before this last season. And I think he should be because of his track record overall. And if this kept happening, I know people say, well, they lost in the first round 3 straight years. And that's
Yeah.
just devoid of context. Like going back to last year, not having Kawhi, the real Kawhi in that series against Dallas, the year before that, not having Kawhi after the first 2 games and have Paul George for the entire series. against the Suns, you have to contextualize it and look at it from that perspective and not just say, well, all I know is they've lost 3 straight years in the first round. This was the first time I felt like they underperformed. They didn't play to their expectations. They didn't rise and meet the moment, regardless of who was there. Because I could say that taking Dallas to 6 with the situation that was going on last year, that made sense to me. Even getting, they only got to 5 games against Phoenix. They fought hard in that game 5. They were down 20. They made a comeback. Again, they're missing their top 2 guys, and they didn't have James Harden then. So this year, every season has its own storyline. Every year is unique. I think Coach Lue had a spectacular regular season with this group once again. And I haven't said that every year. I feel like the 22-23 season was very up and down. That was a difficult year with different lineups, the 3-guard stuff, trying to make it work with John Wall. So now you have this other component, and you bring it up, it's personnel related. And if you're going to lean into the strengths of the guys on the team, well, that means you're going to play a lot of ISO ball. I know you talk about it all the time. And that's what we see late in playoff games anyways, in the majority of playoff games, especially as you get deeper into a series. I don't think ISO ball is the reason that Clippers role players kept missing wide open corner 3 balls that were generated through good offense, through running pick and roll. Like, they were able to manufacture enough good looks in this series. They didn't shoot the ball well in this series at all. Is that on Coach Lue when guys are missing wide open shots? I don't think so. Like I said, there's stuff to critique him about. There's also stuff to critique the players about. They lost the series as a team. I wouldn't move on from him. And then when you say I want Coach Lue gone, well, do you have a solution? Do you have a better option to go to? People are saying Brian Shaw. It's like, because of 5 or 6 games this season, that's wild to me.
What about Michael Malone and Taylor Jenkins that are fresh off getting fired?
I don't think they're better options for this Clippers team than Coach Lue. I think that would just be a shakeup for the sake of a shakeup, just to see if he can light a fire. Like, we know where this team is at right now. Maybe we'll talk more about this, but this is a transitional phase, the end of the Kawhi Leonard era to some degree. He's got 2 years left on his deal. The Clippers are still trying to compete. Maybe they're trying to contend. We'll see what the moves are this summer that would add some credence to that. But this is a interesting time before they open up a lot of cap space in 26 and 27. And for them to win 50 games this season, for everybody that's talking about the playoffs, now disappointing it was and how, defeated you might have felt right afterwards, I totally understand that. I did too. That's a super sour taste in my mouth that I can't get rid of right now, especially seeing OKC in the finals. But they played 6 months of basketball before those 2 weeks of the playoffs. And you can't tell me that just took away all those good moments you had through the journey of this regular season. That was, this long, lengthy regular season, and then 2 weeks and it's over. I know it's abrupt. I know it didn't feel great, but you still got to hold on to all those moments that happened. Like, that is meaningful, I think. It should be as a fan.
Absolutely. And coming up there, we're going to talk about how far the Clippers are from being in contention for a title. All right, back here with Clipper Radio host Adam Auslund, who says not only will Ty Lue be back, but he thinks he should be back. Better options than Taylor Jenkins, Michael Malone. Talked about the series, disappointing the way we went out. Now the question is, how far are we from being a real championship contender? And I don't know how you want to define that, because I would say top 3 seed, but of course, the Pacers are challenging me this year in my theory. And you've been saying that, things are going to, things are changing, but until we actually see teams do it, win it all. I'm always talking about winning it all, not getting to the finals. So, do you think this team can win it all? Honestly, how far are we? Can we actually win it all with a couple of moves? And where would you look to strengthen this roster?
Well, just to address, and history says there have been 2 teams outside of being top 3 seeds that have won championships in the NBA. Most recently, wasn't that recent, 95, Houston Rockets, and they had just won the year before. So even that is pretty unique. But the Clippers were a 4 seed in 2021, and I fully felt like that team was going to go on to win it all. You could say Milwaukee would have been able to beat them, or that would have been a close series. They would have beat Phoenix, though, with Kawhi being healthy if he doesn't do his ACL.
Here's my
So,
question about that
yeah.
season. We continue. Didn't it feel like we didn't fully peak in the regular season, though, because either Paul George or Kawhi were always out for some reason? That's the
And
only reason I was skeptical going into the playoffs, too. And we
no, that's fair.
played Dallas. Remember that? I was so sketch instead of playing Portland.
Dallas in the first round, they go down 0-2. Same thing happened against Utah in the second round. But those last two games in game 3 and 4 was the first time in back-to-back games Kawhi and PG both had 30 points in each of those games. So that felt like they were peaking then at the right time.
I agree.
And of course, Kawhi does his knee at the end of game 4. So this particular Clippers team and the way this season ended, I think you said the same thing and listening to Locked On. I want to see what Denver does moving forward. And then I'll give my full critique on how far away this team is. So Denver ends up taking the Oklahoma City Thunder, who won 68 games and are in the NBA Finals, now down a game, but are in there and are favored. We're minus 700 to win it. They took them to 7, and it was highly competitive. They won that game 1 against them as well. When I saw that, it gave me a little bit more hope that the Clippers aren't as far away as I thought after they lost to Denver in the first round. Now, everything's matchup dependent, and you can't just say, well, that means the Clippers could have taken OKC to 7 because they did that to Denver, and then Denver took the Thunder to 7. That's not how anything works. But do I feel like they would have a shot against them? Doesn't mean they'd be favored. They wouldn't be. But yeah, I still feel like that. And now what tweak can you do on the margins? How can you get better in little areas so those corner threes that are wide open, generated by their pick and roll offense, go down this time around? Like, how can you improve this team a little bit offensively? First of all, they only got 37 games from Kawhi this past year, and they still won 50. What if he plays 55-plus games this year? Can they win 55 games? Can they end up being a top 4, top 3 seed in the West? Could they have home court in a possible game 7 this time around and into a dome? Could that make the difference? I certainly think it would have against Denver in that series. So, like, are they that far away from competing at the very top? No. But I also need to see now how the finals go, because I think if OKC, and I had them in 5 or 6, if they went on to win and make things look easy at times, I would say there's such a cut above everybody else in the West that maybe you are still far away. Even second, there may be a big gap between the first and the second seed in the Western Conference. So what do you do to close the gap? Like, are they going to go over the first apron this summer? I don't think so. I don't think they're going to dip into the luxury tax. I think this team, for the most part, is going to be back. But the one guy that I think could be used as a very tradable piece that could bring you back something that would give you a different dynamic and dimension to this Clippers team would be Norman Powell. I'm not saying I want this to happen. I'm a huge fan of Norman Powell, but in looking at just the situation they're in, he's on expiring this year. He's due for an extension. He deserves to be paid $80, $100 million, his last big contract here. Like, that's the guy that could be moved, and that could open up, maybe them bringing in a power forward or a big man or another playmaker to take a lot of the burden off of James Harden, somebody more reliable, so Harden doesn't have to be the innings eater he was this year in the regular season for them, just somebody to make life easier. So they can upgrade. They have the non-taxpayer mid-level. That's around $14 million to use. And Norman Powell is a big trade chip. And I think after, I don't know if many people realize this, but after the draft takes place here at the end of the month, I think one more first-round pick is going to become available. I think it's going to go from them having the 2030 first-round pick, which they own. That's after Philly, after the OKC picks are gone. That's their first-round pick they get back. But then I think, obviously, you'd have 2031, but you can't trade first-round picks in back-to-back years. But I think 2032 would open up. Therefore, technically, I think you would have the 2030 first-round pick and the 2032 first-round pick to dangle. Now, I don't know if that's enough. And I don't know if anybody wants to, as soon as we get back our picks, to trade them immediately. I'm just saying they may have more ammunition, they may have more assets than we realized to take a big swing if the right opportunity comes along.
What right opportunity would be worth giving up more picks for these guys, Adam? I'm serious. I'm so done with giving up picks to, try to give Kawhi Leonard era the better chance when he's so unreliable health wise. We got him this year, but I mean, are you kidding me? Who's it gonna
it,
be?
it would have to be somebody that, to me, it would have to be somebody that could help them now, but also be their number one guy in the future.
Okay, that's different, and that's going to be hard to find. I can't even think of anyone that. Yeah, because there's Giannis.
I'm
But
not
there's
saying it's
no way we can
likely.
get Giannis. Yeah,
You're right. Giannis. I think Trae Young may get moved. Kevin Durant's likely going to be moved, of course. There's some reports out there about him.
KD
KD might take one first-round pick now, honestly.
But KD, and you said you wanted to be the number one past Kawhi. This would be aligning with this era and doubling down. I mean, he's an amazing player, but
KD wouldn't be that.
Yeah, doubling down on older, and we'd probably have to trade some. You think we'd just get Norman Powell and one first rounder? I don't think the Phoenix Suns. I think a better deal than that around the league for him. He's like
They'd
Houston.
probably come for DJ as well.
Yeah, that would take. I mean, the thing is, then we have three guys that aren't going to guard the best player, and they're going to be good help defenders. But that's going to be kind of we could still have Chris Dunn in there, I guess.
You'd at least have your power forward in Kevin Durant. Kawhi slides down to the 3 spot. I don't hate. That's not the ideal way to, I guess, trade those first round picks like I was talking about. I know you did a show recently on LaMelo Ball, and would the Clippers even have enough to get him? If they traded 2 first round picks, if they could do that, I think it's also going to depend on who Charlotte drafts.
Yeah.
I don't think they're all in with LaMelo moving forward, even though he's on that contract. I think things could change quickly with that.
When you think about LaMelo or Trae Young, though, is that someone you pair with Harden and double down on that kind of player? Do you get? I mean, what do you think about Harden's situation this summer? And do you think Kawhi can still be a number one on a championship team realistically? He's just got to get all the right pieces.
It's interesting because Lawrence Frank in his exit interviews talked about a couple different things with Kawhi, saying one, he thinks he can get to another level athletically with him having this summer to not have to rehab. And then 2, he said something to the degree of it's fair to question whether or not he's a top 5 player or a top 10 player. And he never said that before. He always said when Kawhi's healthy, he's a top 5 player. So I do think there are some question marks. He was good in the series. He wasn't good enough.
Yeah.
He wasn't great consistently enough.
The way we've been used to seeing him.
Right.
Yeah.
I think it's possible he could still be that number one, but you're still asking a lot with injury luck, especially if you brought in Kevin Durant. Now you're talking about KD being 37 this year, Kawhi being 34, James Harden being 36. Can they really make it through 4 rounds of playoff basketball?
And it would make us a lot better. And honestly, we have to sadly wrap up soon. This thing, I was nervous we wouldn't even get to the limit with Adam, but Adam and I could do 2-3 shows. I mean, it would be, it's so easy to talk about basketball with you. But I was going to say to end it with KD is, I feel like we could always use another scorer. We could always use another guy, but I don't know if we need another guy that's gonna. The power forward would be nice, but he doesn't even get that physical when it comes to that kind of thing. Low man help. He's good at it, but I wouldn't put him in an amazing.
Let's say one thing. There's a big domino you mentioned that starts a whole ripple effect for this offseason, and that's whether or not Harden opts out or opts in. And if he opts out, everybody's expecting he'll just sign another 1+1. What if he wants 3 years? What if he actually wants one more big contract? And now you're at an impasse. And now the Clippers would have $35 million less under the first apron and the luxury tax to play with if Harden left. That changes everything.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions. I was going to say with KD is that do we need another guy that's really good mid-range pull-up guy? And I don't know. He operates in similar areas to Kawhi. I don't think they couldn't play together, obviously, but it just feels like, I don't know. It depends how you want the team built. If you want a new number one or a 1A, 1B dynamic with KD and Kawhi, or if you want Kawhi to have the guys that support his skill set. Because we honestly probably need more playmaking kind of guys than around Kawhi. It's like a super, super, supercharged Paul George style. He operates in similar areas, Kevin Durant is all I'm saying. But he's so much better. I'm not trying to compare KD to PG, but you can Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Dime Dropper Pod. Subscribe to this channel, Locked On Clippers, and my own Dime Dropper. And Adam, let them know where they can find you.
At Follow Adam A on X, at Clippers Talk on the YouTube side. Thanks again for having me, Darian.
Yes, sir. And we'll be back with Adam sooner. Maybe the next couple of weeks. We got all summer.